Today we're going to be talking about the most politically brain-rotted video I have ever seen, coming from the horror community of all places. Calling every big content creator who held a gun a far-right YouTuber, getting every detail wrong,
to having multiple ties to other far-right extremist figures. He is friends with Brandon Buckingham, a gun YouTuber who has been accused of threatening rape. He is friends with Oompaville, a gun-obsessed content creator that has taken advantage of Nikado Avocado's mental decline.
Nikado is a character. Have you even watched the videos?
He is friends with Muta, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites, and has recently showcased a great deal of transphobia in his most recent video.
Oh no, this guy hasn't watched anything. This guy will pearl clutch at every opportunity while at the same time pushing harmful stereotypes, like saying that everyone who lives in Appalachia is a racist.
Deep Appalachia is very white country, and for the most part, is exceptionally racist. Genuinely in this part of the country, you have to assume that any white person you meet is racist unless they show you otherwise.
And then he legitimately tries to use this as a point to prove that Wendigoon is a racist because he lives there. I love my job.
And beyond that is the Cherokee Reservation. Wendigoon lives somewhere just on the other side of the reservation. That is not me doxing him. He has said many times publicly that he lives in East Tennessee. And I'm not even saying what town he lives in. According to the latest census, there are only 23 black people who live in Maggie Valley.
But why would this guy push so hard to frame Wendigoon as a racist? Well, it's because he wants to gatekeep the horror movie review genre. I'm not gonna make it through this.
So what if he's a conservative? Is that a problem? Which the answer to that is yes. But the reason that I care is because this does not belong in horror or anywhere. I care deeply about horror, and everything that he does has demonstrated so far in his career that he should not be welcomed in our spaces.
It all just reminds me of Hassan saying the word cracker isn't racist and then repeatedly using it in the most racist way possible.
Crime of using the C word, cracker. Did I say, oh my God, saltine cracker? Like people are just bitter because it's saltine cracker. That's not what I said, you dumb cracker bitch.
Cracker this, cracker that. All this talk of crackers is making me hungry, but I don't want some sugary snack. Good thing I have Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is cereal with the same great taste you remember with grown-up ingredients. 140 calories, 0 sugar, gluten-free cereal that still has the same taste you loved as a kid. Coming in frosted, peanut butter, cocoa, and my personal favorite, fruity. It tastes like the highest quality version of the same stuff you ate as a kid. It really does bring me back to my childhood. I think it's the only cereal I've eaten that has swag. I love the branding. It's adult cereal that still has the games on the box. Do I need to say more? Why'd they make the maze so hard? It's great for people who are carb conscious with 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, no artificial ingredients, and 13 grams of protein. See, this buff guy loves it, so you will too. And if you somehow don't like it, Magic Spoon will give you a full refund, no questions asked. That's how confident they are in their product. My mom has been begging me to work with Magic Spoon. She's been eating their cereal for years, so if you want to be cool like me and my mom, go to magicspoon.com/Willy or scan the QR code and use code Willy at checkout to get $5 off any order. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this video.
Nobody even wants you here.
In Praise of Shadows, also known as Zane, is a horror movie review YouTuber. He loves focusing on the political analysis of film and relating everything back to being left-leaning, which is fine. It's his content, but it does come off as a bit cringe at times. He reviewed The Hills Have Eyes.
This is a film about cannibals killing and eating a family who get lost on their summer vacation. And psychologically, most when they watch this will be on the side of the vacationing family and wish for them to survive and make it out and get back home. And why is that?
It's because they're cannibals.
Because if you look at this from the perspective of the hill people, they are only defending what is theirs, this land that they call home. To say that the hill people and the New Yorkers are of the same nation would only be true in the strictest definition, in that they happen to live within the same borders, but culturally, they couldn't be more different. The Hills Have Eyes is a clash of when you take two types of people who hold absolute contempt for one another, and then you proceed to call them both American and equals, who supposedly have the same opportunities at birth.
Oh, my bad. I guess it's about BLM in January 6th. He ended up getting memed on quite a bit for this video, with the top comment saying, "This video. The family had a flat tire and momentarily tried to retrieve their lost dog. So who's the real murdering cannibalistic rapist here? It was self-defense. I don't know. It's weird to say someone's invading your land when all that happened is they crashed their car and went looking for their lost dog."
And as he falls to the ground, the symbol of inherited generational wealth, education, and power stands over his already dying body and stabs him repeatedly in the heart. Not to kill him, which at this point is already an inevitability, but to remind him of his place.
Or maybe it was just to kill the cannibal that attacked him and his family. I don't know, just my interpretation. The reason why we're talking about this is because he dropped a 3-hour-long video titled Bad Conservative Horror Movies, which is not about conservative movies at all. The video is split into 3 parts. Part 1 is calling everyone stupid for not agreeing with his Hills Have Eyes review and blaming his audience's stupidity for his channel dying.
I don't think that most of them have actually even watched it. And I kind of want to look at this, because posting that video was a huge negative turning point in my life, and the way that that one video was received has really impacted everything around me. Before that, I was relatively comfortable financially. I could make the kinds of videos that I wanted to, and have honestly struggled very badly ever since then.
He's like, nobody treats me like a person anymore, despite none of the comments being that bad.
They don't even treat me like a person.
He's so dramatic. Of course you're going to lose viewers if you're going to gatekeep horror movies from everyone who's not extremely left-leaning.
Horror is an intrinsically left, punk, anti-establishment, countercultural art form that is primarily concerned with social issues and pushing boundaries beyond what is deemed acceptable by traditional, more conservative, polite society. There's no other way that you can rationally look at it and still exist within reality.
The vast majority of viewers just want to see the scary thing and hear the scary story. Of course you're going to lose viewers if you talk like a gatekeeping douchebag. He goes on to discredit every other creator who doesn't apply his same politics to their analysis.
Folks constantly talk about the political undertones of my videos, but horror is an unabashedly political genre that is concerned directly with issues facing the current society. And if you're in the horror space and you don't regularly acknowledge this foundation as a challenge to power, then I just assume you're in it for the money, or that you don't actually care, or you're just really bad at your job. And if that makes you uncomfortable or upset that I often do that in my videos, that's probably a good thing.
It's a very pretentious video that only becomes more unself-aware when he starts to complain about the drop in viewership hurting his ability to pay bills.
There was a month last year where I only made $500 in ad revenue. I can't live off that. The amount of times that I've almost had to stop making videos since then has been almost monthly. I've barely been able to keep this afloat. I've paid my rent late most months for the past year.
Now let me get this straight. This guy isolates his viewers that aren't on the extreme left, tells them to leave and that horror isn't for them, and then cries when his viewership goes down. You can't make this up. But you know what? I still kind of feel bad for him. Living paycheck to paycheck is hard. Trying to go full-time on YouTube is also hard. But I fail to show any empathy when he's continually shooting himself in the foot and then he's turning down sponsors.
I, as a blanket rule, have never accepted gifts or sponsorship for my work, even though I get a constant stream of email offers about them.
This guy is just a struggling artist. He's better than us.
Either way, you sadly became full of yourself, mourning over your poor artist soul and drowning in self-pity.
But it does seem a little tone deaf to cry to your audience about bills while you're leaving money on the table. He spends the rest of the video pearl clutching. A guy wants the horror movie Abigail to gross more than Civil War, and that's somehow fundamentalist Christian language.
This is the kind of language that fundamentalist Christians use, and we are subjecting people to listening to it in relation to a moderately decent movie about vampire children eating people. But it really is that kind of Orwellian fascist idea.
A character live streams in a horror movie and the chat says the F slur.
The comment section that is on screen at all times constantly uses slurs, including the word f*** multiple times. From what I can tell, neither Shepherd nor Savage are actually queer, but I can't find conclusive evidence to say that 100%.
Tarantino movies say the N-word and he isn't black. Is this an R-rated piece of media or not? Let's face it, we all know if the lady from Halloween was streaming, some asshole would be in the comments calling her the F-slur. A film director says he doesn't care about COVID, and Zane frames as him wanting to kill all of his employees.
I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but at least to me, when I read that, it seems that he is implying that he did not care if his employees got COVID under his command and possibly died, so long as the product continued to get made and that he could get even more wealthy.
This tweet was made in 2022. Nobody cared about COVID anymore in 2022. A director was a guest on Ben Shapiro, so that means he's a Nazi.
One of his biggest crimes against horror to me is that he sat down to be a guest on the Ben Shapiro show. You know, the old 1940s phrase that roughly goes, if you have 10 people and one Nazi willingly sitting down for a meal together, then all you have is 11 Nazis. So, if one film executive sits down with a fascist for a civil conversation, then all you have are 2 fascists being broadcast over the internet.
And this leads into a 40-minute unhinged rant saying Wendigoon, another horror YouTuber, is a fascist along with everyone he's interacted with on Twitter. He says Wendigoon can't analyze horror content because he has money and owns a gun.
I have no need or desire to hear 5 hours of opinions on Blood Meridian from a 21-year-old millionaire. who got famous around the age of 19. There are some works that fundamentally will not be understood by you if you are wealthy and have always been upper class your entire life. And this may all sound condescending, but that doesn't stop it from being somewhat true. There are many things that are red flags that we could talk about, from the bizarre gun ownership, the flagrant use from my perspective of his religion as a shield from criticism, to the belief that he at one point followed many far-right accounts on Twitter, from Kyle Rittenhouse to Parler.
Of course, somebody who owns a gun is going to be supportive of Kyle Rittenhouse. It's a self-defense case where Kyle was found innocent. Of course he's going to be following him. These are the most surface-level observations. He owns gun, bad. He rich, bad. I find it funny that earlier in this same video, Discount Noah Samson says this isn't going to be a video just listing off people he hates on Twitter.
I promise that this video is not going to turn into a list of people who annoyed me on Twitter.
It's exactly that.
And I hope that this is becoming obvious to you as well. In my opinion, there is a regular pattern of behavior there, from supporting Rittenhouse to having multiple ties to other far-right extremist figures. Wendigoon is very publicly friends with Turkey Tom. They have been seen together on multiple occasions, and I've seen online mentions that Tom was either at his wedding or at the very least was invited.
When he says Wendigoon is friends with far-right fascists, I'm thinking Nick Fuentes, Baked Alaska, not Turkey Tom, the commentary YouTuber.
Tom has been accused of using the N-word multiple times in private conversations, including these screenshots of texts that are alleged to be real.
They are real. These messages Tom sent in high school will haunt them forever.
And he's also been accused of saying that the upper tiers of his Patreon were intended for Jews with deep pockets.
That's also true. Hey, you never asked. That's why you're struggling to pay your bills. Jews with deep pockets, you're welcome to join my Patreon.
Wendigoon is publicly connected to the Internet Historian, and has even appeared in his videos. The Internet Historian publicly said that his birthday was April 20th. It is not. And has only said that as a joke because that is Hitler's birthday.
Okay. Is that it? This guy doesn't explain anything. He just points out one edgy joke these people have said as if that's proof of right-wing extremism and then moves on.
Wendigoon is publicly friends with Donut Operator, and even retweeted a photograph of the two of them hugging. Donut Operator is a gun-crazed, very far-right YouTuber with 4 million subscribers.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to back this up with solid evidence.
His content is very pro-state, pro-cop, pro-gun, and pro-death to people who don't share his beliefs propaganda. For example, one of his videos is titled Predator Takes Shotgun to the Face, and features a picture of him smiling in the corner of the thumbnail next to an image of a terrified man about to be executed by cops, with the text that reads, head removal.
Did you watch the video? Donut Operator is reviewing a case where a 7-year-old was being harmed, and when the police came in, the guy reached for his gun, leading to his death. Why are you making it sound like you're against this? The criticism from Zane is missing context and is extremely bad faith.
Wendigoon seems very comfortable with a man who makes his living worshipping violence committed by the state. He's a man of no conviction, claiming to be very against the government and for the rights of the people, while at the same time giving a warm embrace to one of the biggest fascist bootlickers on the internet.
The example he used is of a pedophile. How dare Wendigoon be friends with Donut Operator, even though he supports cops stopping pedos? What a bootlicker, a man of no conviction.
The only thing that one could reasonably gather from this picture of them hugging is that he too is a fascist bootlicker himself.
Or maybe they're friends because they have stuff in common, like making YouTube videos and liking guns. But I'm just spitballing here.
He has collaborated with Nick Crowley, who constantly makes money through the most morbid and shameful true crime content, of showcasing the last minutes of people before they are suddenly and unexpectedly killed.
Isn't that all true crime, all Forensic Files episodes? How is this evidence of anything?
He is publicly friends with Shoe on Head, who is a conservative masquerading as a leftist, who has built a career off of lazy anti-woke content, complaining about SJWs, who says stuff like, Karl Marx rising from the grave finding out his movement has been taken over by fat, ugly, mentally ill losers.
He's mad because she's talking about him.
He is friends with Brandon Buckingham, a gun YouTuber who has been accused of threatening rape.
Hold up, I've watched a lot of Brandon Buckingham. He has shot guns. He is in no way a gun YouTuber. This is like saying iDubbbz or Ethan are gun YouTubers. It makes no sense. As for threatening rape, he never did that. That is a lie Sneeko told. Zane is pushing a false rape allegation in the same video he's crying about being slandered for his film analysis.
There is this thing that the internet does, where one person says something that is false but sounds believable and is tangentially related to what actually happened, and then other people start to repeat it out of context, and morph it, and slowly escalate it, until it just becomes general belief, even though it is detached from reality. The cruel and untrue things that you say about another person do in fact have direct impacts on them and the way that people culturally see them.
Bro, you're doing that, but instead of it being about the hills have eyes, it's about a rape allegation, something that matters. He goes on like this for over half an hour.
He is friends with Oompaville, a gun-obsessed content creator that has taken advantage of Nakado Avocado's mental decline for fame and for money. And on top of that, has made content with the human trafficker, Andrew Tate.
Nikocado was an act. He puts it on. This guy is so socially inept, he doesn't even realize it.
Oh! Oop! 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 That's my scooter! My precious scooter!
You just know this guy turns on WWE and thinks Triple H actually broke into Randy Orton's house. And as far as Andrew Tate, it was a respectable interview that took place before the human trafficking charges even came to fruition. He's retroactively criticizing an interview that was very well received at the time and was handled better than most mainstream media outlets.
He is friends with Muta, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites.
I'm against deplatforming Andrew Tate too, and I exposed him to a greater extent than most mainstream media outlets, to the point where they would wait till my video comes out and post an article the next day citing the exact same sources I used in my video. Unless they're a convicted child predator, I'm against deplatforming because it leads to these hateful conspiratorial echo chambers that go unchallenged, festering in the background. There was a while where it seemed like every creator was getting banned, from Leafy to Gideon to Aiden Ross. It's better if everyone's just in the same place where people can routinely make Nick look like an idiot for his worldview.
But what if we're living in the same house and there's a fight over, who gets to shower when and who gets this seat on the couch and who? These are the kinds of things that happen in a dense.
Wait, do you think you'd fight with him because he's
population.
black over that?
I wouldn't fight about stuff like that. And
Hold. I want to hear the answer to Desi's question.
Well, yeah. Would you fight more with a black person over who gets to use the shower?
Yes, and here's why. Because
Otherwise, more people are going to turn into Sneeko. We don't need more Sneekos.
He is friends with Muta, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites, and has recently showcased a great deal of transphobia in his most recent video.
Is he going to give any argument for why the video is transphobic? No, of course not. It's because it isn't. So much of this video is, oh look, Wendigoon responded to a tweet and that account likes some sus stuff. As if Wendigoon is supposed to be aware of that. So what did Wendigoon do? Not one of his friends, not one of his followers, him. Well, apparently he started a white supremacist group.
We could talk about his past and supposedly being a founding member in an online conspiracy theory group that, according to him, snowballed out of control into being a white supremacist neo-Nazi organization called the Boogaloo Boys. His online username at the time was Boogaloo Boy, and he claims to be the first to have started using it, but that he left the group and became Wendigoon after things started to get out of hand. And this is not a conspiracy theory in itself. Shockingly, he literally has said so in writing.
Wendigoon admitted this was him creating a meme page where it was taken over by more and more extreme people until he left. It really isn't that damning unless you're going to be extremely uncharitable, which he is.
Also, it should be noted that the Boogaloo Boys are known for wearing Hawaiian shirts. And guess who else always has on a Hawaiian shirt, despite the fact that he publicly totally does not share in their beliefs, guys.
Zane, it's a popular style of shirt. You're wearing the shirt. What's weirder, Wendigoon wearing a Hawaiian shirt because that's what he likes to wear, or this leftist wearing a Hawaiian shirt even though he thinks it's a racist dog whistle? Is this like Vosh's tactical N-word? This video has zero research behind it, zero common sense. Zane sits there and speculates on how wealthy Wendigoon is as if that means he can't talk about horror movies.
Not to mention the fact that Wendigoon was raised in a very wealthy family, and with that comes from a wealthy perspective. He himself has inadvertently admitted that his family at one point had millions of dollars.
My whole thing is instead of speculating this guy's apparel, why not just reach out to him and ask him questions? So I did. He said he worked at a gun store, he liked guns, so he made a meme page about guns. Around 2019, 2020, the joke became super serious to some people, who began to see it as a for the people movement, which was fine at first, but then people began to apply to whatever their political stance was, and it became a mess. So he left. There is no evidence that Wendigoon radicalized anybody. Extremists stole the meme, that's all the evidence available. I asked Wendigoon if Zane ever reached out to him before making his video. He said no, he never reached out. There was a lot he got wrong, even objectively, that I would have been happy to clear up even for a hit piece. For instance, my parents were not rich. In the quote he even reads, I say my dad lost everything, and that was all before I was born. So Zane never even reached out for clarification before assuming the worst from this guy and everyone who's ever appeared in a photo with him. I did more research in the 3 minutes it took to reach out than his 3-hour video. It's embarrassing. In 2019, the Boogaloo Boys became an official group, and Zane attributes every crime crime they did to Wendigoon.
Do you remember when armed men were arrested a few years ago for planning the kidnapping of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmire? That was the Boogaloos. Do you remember when white people showed up at the George Floyd protests and caused property damage and violence in the hopes that black people would be blamed for that? That was the Boogaloos. He was just like, oh geez, sorry guys, about starting a violent hate group, guys. Sorry that people got killed. I totally didn't mean to do all that. My bad. I'll do better next time.
Am I missing something? Was Wendigoon there? Is there any evidence that he supports any of this? No, it is the most baseless and unhinged analysis I have ever seen. Zane becomes borderline racist towards Wendigoon at times, doxing him.
Wendigoon and I are practically neighbors, and I know this area very well. Okay, so I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and between that and the reservation, you have the community of Lake Junaluska, which isn't actually even a real town. You can walk across the whole thing in a matter of minutes. You got Waynesville, you have Maggie Valley, and a few other small drive-by communities. And beyond that is the Cherokee Reservation. Wendigoon lives somewhere just on the other side of the reservation. That is not me doxing him. He has said many times publicly that he lives in East Tennessee. And I'm not even saying what town he lives in. According to the latest census, there are only 23 black people who live in Maggie Valley. There are 15 Native Americans despite it touching the reservation. Most of this area used to be sundown towns. It is about as white as you could possibly get, genuinely in this part of the country. You have to assume that any white person you meet is racist unless they show you otherwise.
Oh, he's white and he lives there, therefore he's racist. That's the level of critical thinking taking place, but not you. You're one of the good white guys. Oompaville tweeted, imagine shitting on some of the most systemically forgotten and impoverished people in America and thinking you were virtuous or moral because they happen to be white. Then getting called out saying, you guys know my heart was in the right place. Ha ha ha. Zane is a picturesque example of true bigotry masquerading as an enlightened tortured genius that operates with empathy, nuance, and compassion above all else. There are so many of these people, it's so f***ed up how lost some smart people are. He tries to say Wendigoon is a racist for his name, saying he's disrespecting natives for using the word Wendigo.
Then of course, there is his username. To the Algonquin people, the Wendigo is a negative spiritual symbol that is to be avoided and whose name is to never even be said out loud or written down. So I know there's a bit of a hypocrisy there on my part, but we kind of do have to say it for academic purposes, so apologies for that.
There's nothing academic about this video. This is like saying Blizzard can't make Diablo or Harry Potter shouldn't exist because some Christians got upset. Nobody cares.
But don't you think it is extremely weird and off-putting that all of his fans call him Dad? Isn't that really strange?
No? Are you trying to imply something? He never elaborates. He just throws that out there and moves right along. He then acts like Wendigoon following him on Twitter was some sort of psychological threat.
Right in the midst of this going on, a very funny thing happened, and that Wendigoon followed me on Twitter. I was not following him at the time. He never publicly told people to stop calling me a friend. He never once reached out to me privately, but he did follow me, which means in my eyes that he 100% knew what was happening because I did tweet about it several times, and then followed me to let me know that he knew, and that he was watching and that he intended to do nothing to stop it. What other motivation could he have had there to follow me in that specific moment, other than to be a method of quiet and deniable intimidation? What other way could that have been read from my perspective? That was the moment that pushed me over the edge to make this video.
He ends the video by calling everyone Nazis.
Clearly, as we have seen, everything that he does has deep political motivations.
You haven't shown one example.
And if they don't want to be seen as a big group of Nazis, then let's see how they react to this video's existence, because I am certain they will be very level-headed about all of this.
How does he not see the irony in this statement? Wendigoon would leave a comment on his video. Please no one harass or comment rude things on my behalf. I do not agree with or condone meanness in any way. If you are here to leave a spiteful remark on my behalf, don't. Nothing good comes from anger. I want to apologize for people saying awful things to you on Twitter. I did not know this was happening. I followed you because I saw your Slenderman video and enjoyed it. Then I saw you in my recommended follows. It sounds like you strongly dislike me, and that's okay, but if I have done anything to cause that, I apologize. So Zane is schizoing out in the corner, coming up with conspiracy theories about why this is a threat, when in reality, Wendigoon just liked his videos. Even when I DM'd Wendigoon, he was nothing but polite towards Zane, saying I feel bad for him. This guy seems to have a lot of hate in his heart, and that can't be easy on the bones. It's clearly not. Zane speaks as if his only purpose in life is to make political horror videos.
The only thing I have of value left to me in this world is my writing and my perspective.
Wendigoon would continue to write, I don't have any malice and I meant what I said in my comment on the video. I I hope nobody harasses him on my behalf. If I make a tweet saying that, however, that'll drive more eyes towards him. And I don't want to do that as a lot of people are mad regardless of what I say. I wish him the best and hope he finds what he's looking for. Zayn would then delete the entire Wendigoon section of his video and tweeted, many people have said very fair criticism of my work and that I did not appropriately portray people, and I would like to address that. He apologizes to Brandon Buckingham for pushing his false rape allegations, saying, to be honest, I saw pictures of you with Turkey Tom, Donut Operator, Wendigoon, and Brandon Herrera, and often with guns in your hand. I wrote you off. I did not feel like you were worth my time, and that was a result of the company you keep. Ultimately, that is a failing on me though, and how I presented that. It's such a backhanded apology. Him having a gun does not make him a bad person. He goes, Brandon used homophobic language towards me through calling me a low testosterone freak. I don't even know how that's homophobic. What, are you on estrogen? He then goes on to Mutahar. Your thumbnail art was transphobic. I have nothing else to say to that. No explanation, no argument. He just goes on to play victim. I was overcome with anger because I think it's incredibly dangerous that there's a man in horror that you cannot criticize without being called the F slur for days on end. I think that is a serious issue. Then talk about that. Maybe you could work something out instead of coming up with conspiracies about him and his friends. I also think it's telling that the bulk of what I said has not actually been addressed at all. Bro, you haven't said anything based in reality. I feel like people have addressed you very clearly. He blames all of his problems on conservatives and says that he's taking down that part of the video as well as taking a month off. I thought you lived paycheck to paycheck. How are you taking a month off? This guy cannot be real. If you felt like you have been mischaracterized, that was not my intention and I genuinely am sorry. Just to be perfectly clear, every single person you mentioned feels like they were mischaracterized. I care so much about horror. It is my life. I grew tired and scared of seeing hate growing on the fringe of something I care so deeply about. Horror is about kindness. Horror is about love. Until next time, Zayn. Bro, what are you talking about? This video was so hateful. He posted a similar message on his Patreon talking about how tricky it is to talk about cultural appropriation as a white man and that he only meant to do good with his slanderous video. He then took down his YouTube video completely and made a community post where he apologizes but then acts like the victim, saying, I do think it's dangerous these creators don't acknowledge the obvious situation at play. He'd delete this too because his own community disagrees with him. The reason people say too much politics rots your brain is because you start to view people in terms of teams instead of judging them as individuals. Suddenly, everybody who owns a gun is a gun-crazed fascist.
Gun YouTuber, a gun-obsessed content creator, gun-crazed, very far-right YouTuber.
Everybody who supports the police for stopping child abuse is a bootlicker.
The only thing that one could reasonably gather from this picture of them hugging is that he too is a fascist bootlicker himself.
It's important to remember that you most likely have more in common with your Republican or Democrat neighbor than you do with Hassan or Andrew Tate. These people's brands thrive off division, and I genuinely believe Zayn is a product of that. Hopefully this is his wake-up call. If not, just another cow to add to the herd. Yeehaw! Subscribe to the channel. Eat some goddamn cereal. Shout out to the homies over on Patreon. Phoebes, Crimson Glass, Riveter, Christina Vina, Mac Monkey, Drink Kobex, Necro Valley, Stefan Billman, The Confusing Opinion, Eddie Bizzle, Tismic Fitz, Christopher H, TV Anthology Reviews, Kanklemore, Sennial Music, Lucas If, ET Automatic, Snoopy Poop Doop 2, and the mega homies, Reynold Hughes, Hellison, IGP, Your Taxi, Latchkey Goth Boy, Cyber Katie, Lori Loaded, Papa Gut, Caden Lulin, XO Irish XO, BA Subway, Hawk and Load, Zerophonic, Derek Deuce, Strictly Patrick, at Kitty Cat, The Screaming Cloaker, Terox, Faye Under, John Manfredo, Trick, and Lucas.